Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. St. Louis was founded in 1659. And contrary to what you may have learned in your Missouri history class, that's not a mistake on our part. We're talking about an older St. Louis, one in the southern hemisphere. It's the city of San Luis, Senegal, the oldest colonial city on Africa's western coast. Its life began 65 years before fur traders founded a different St. Louis in the New World. Earlier this week, our producer Lara Hamdan talked to Sophie Sek. She moved to Missouri as a teenager from Dakar, the capital of Senegal. She has fond memories of visiting San Luis, Senegal. She founded the Missouri company Expedition Sub-Sahara, which sells handmade goods from women in African countries right here in the U.S. Here's what she had to say about her awareness growing up in Senegal of another St. Louis across the Atlantic.
I've known, I think, all of my life that there was a St. Louis in Missouri, or at least in the United States. I didn't know it was in Missouri. So it was one of the appeals of coming here. There was a connect, even if it was just a names connect, a familiarity, if you will.
And Sophie Sek also told us a bit about our Senegalese sister city.
There's a big art scene there. The culture there is kind of different from Dakar. While Dakar is a little bit older, as far as you see a lot of older people, in St. Louis there was more younger people, and there was a very cool art scene, and even the architecture, and there was just more things popping, if you will, there. So I remember going there as a little person, just being with my cousins and just them taking me around, and remember thinking it looked like a completely different world because it looked like this. It looked like what New Orleans looks like now. There's these French buildings that are just large and colorful and just completely different than what Dakar looks like.
And now that you've kind of spent some time here in St. Louis, Missouri, are there things you found in common between the sister cities?
As far as architecture, Lafayette Square kind of reminds me of St. Louis. It has the same French twist to it. I feel like there's a French twist to this city as well. It's just not as pronounced as, obviously the French were in Senegal, and, St. Louis was the capital, so there's a huge French influence. While here it's in macro doses. It's this neighborhood, and it just looks completely I don't know the word. It just looks what I consider French.
That's St. Louis resident Sophie Sek on the connections between San Luis, Senegal, and St. Louis. Now, Sek isn't the only one contemplating those connections. Tomorrow, a new contemporary art exhibition opens at the Barrett Barrera Projects in the Central West End. It surveys the art scene in the African San Luis and notes the parallels between the two cities named for St. Louis the King. The exhibition is called St. Louis to St. Louis, the city on the river meets River City. And here to discuss the show today is its curator, Modou Dieng. Modou, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great, yeah.
Now, Modou, you were born in San Luis, Senegal.
Yes.
Were you like Sophie, who we just played that clip from? Did you grow up understanding that there was another St. Louis out there?
No, actually, I had no idea until I moved to the U.S.
So we flew under the radar for you.
Right, and and then I was like, oh, okay, I should go and check it out. It's the same name, and it's the getaway to the West. So that's a great beginning. A great introduction to Middle America. So
what brought you to the U.S. in the first place?
Oh, I moved here just I always loved American culture. I loved jazz music, and I loved the contemporary art, the modern art, from the mid-50s, and the Harlem Renaissance. So I came to I went to study in San Francisco. I did grad school there. So
and then you ended up in Chicago.
Right. Well, it's between San Francisco and Chicago. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a decade and taught as a professor there at the art college. So
you've had a real American journey here.
Right. So it was time to sort of like discover the rest of America. The West Coast is great, but there is something else to see also.
Yeah, and you actually went to the middle of the country, which a lot of people like to skip.
Right.
So what ended up inspiring this show that you've curated at the Barrett Barrera Projects here in St. Louis?
Yeah, I've been working with Susan Barrett, who's the founder of Barrett Barrera, for quite a bit of time now. And we've done several exhibitions, and when I realized that Saint Louis, the city where I'm from, and St. Louis, Missouri are sister cities, I was like, wow, did you know that? How about we try to do something together, in between the two cities? Because she's a very, very big promoter and entrepreneur of all of the contemporary and cultural renaissance here in St. Louis, and then she was like, okay, yeah, let's take a look at it and see what we can do. So we work on this larger project, which is to start by bringing, contemporary artists from St. Louis to St. Louis, and maybe later on we will take this sort of journey to bring St. Louis artists to St. Louis.
Oh, that would be great.
Yes,
to give local artists here a platform in Africa.
Yep, exactly.
So I understand that the art scene in San Luis it's very vibrant.
Yes.
What kind of work are they doing there?
Well, it's mostly photography because it's very picturesque. It's a very old. It's a patrimoine universal, UNESCO patrimoine. So it's very beautiful. You have. They call it the Venice of Africa because you have the river, the water, and all of these very old buildings. Some of them are in ruins, and so most of the artists over there primarily work with photography, and also a bit of painting, and also a bit of traditional sculpture that comes from more of a crafty hand, So, yeah.
Tell us about one of the artists that you're highlighting in this show.
Right. Well, I myself am an artist, and I'm in the show, And
what's your medium? Are you a photographer?
Yes, I take pictures of the old colonial structure and buildings, and I paint over them, as a sort of way of reappropriating them. And making it a little bit of my own energy and memory, because I've left the town for quite a bit of time now, and
you're looking back on it.
Yes, and working, playing with it to sort of express my own identity. And then we have, many other artists in the show who are quite, in love also with the city, and that inspired them. For example, Abdul Karim Fall does this amazing, sort of a ghosty painting of the same colonial architecture. So he's retracing a journey through the architecture to talk about the Sunday of today and the way things should be sort of reshuffle in a contemporary life,
Okay,
So.
You've got a total of 11 artists. Do
Right.
they have multiple works up in this show, or just one
Each of them has 3 or 4 pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the parallels that you're drawing by showing the work that you chose for this? What parallels are you drawing between San Luis and St. Louis?
Well, to me, it's just it's about first starting a conversation, because I think the two cities have a lot to give to each other, and today in this global market and in this global atmosphere, we are trying to sort of basically build a bridge over the Atlantic,
So another St. Louis-San Luis connection is being forged by Sophie Seck, who we heard from earlier. She told our producer, Lara Hamdan, about the organization she founded here in St. Louis, which is called Exhibition Sahara.
So there's 4 artists who make everything that Expedition Sub-Sahara sells, and 3 of them are in Senegal. I am the 4th. We make baskets that are very traditionally Senegalese. A lot of women in parts of Senegal, basket weaving is a large part of the culture, and so is beading, making jewelry. It's that artistic field that you kind of inherit from your mother, and a lot of part of Africa actually, but definitely in Senegal as well. And so we make these traditional looking baskets and jewelry, but we give it a Western twist. So it's not completely, it has a Western design to it, but with a Senegalese tradition to it.
And your goal with this company is to ultimately make a big impact, specifically in Saint Louis in Senegal. And you hope to build an all-girls STEAM school. Why there specifically?
Because when I first came to the States, like I said, the connection of St. Louis and St. Louis was so great to me. And there was such comfort in my heart just knowing that I was coming to a place that had similarity and had a connection, be it historic or name. So it had there was a feeling of, okay, it's going to be okay just based on that connection. So I came here, and I feel like St. Louis, Missouri has given me so much. It's given me an education. It's given me a dual culture. And I feel like I've learned so much by being here. So when I had this idea of building a girls' school, what a better connection than the sister city, you know? Because really with Expedition, the funds are mainly raised in St. Louis, Missouri. The community I've had around me in St. Louis has been so great and just keeps growing every single day. And when you say, I want to build a school back home in Senegal, they want to know more about St. Louis, and they want to know about the school, and they want to know how they can help. And have just been so gracious in every way. So I just want to connect my two dual cultures in that way.
That's Sophie Sek, whose organization Expedition Sub-Sahara sells Senegalese baskets and jewelry in the U.S. Modou Dieng, are you familiar with these baskets that she's talking about?
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm discovering.
You've been here in the U.S. so long.
Yeah, no. I know about it, but I haven't seen her product.
Oh, you haven't seen hers? Yeah,
Yes,
I meant
yeah.
the baskets
Right.
that have traditionally
Oh
been
yeah,
used.
of course.
This is something
yes.
that's a big deal in Senegal.
Yeah, because it's a savanne, and all of those plants, are used to,
These are like reeds, or
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
and they're used for carrying goods around.
Anything, clothes, food, safe stuff, anything. They are very practical and beautiful also.
Interesting.
Beautiful piece of craft here.
So Sophie Sek, she also hopes to open a school for girls in Saint Louis, and she told us a little bit about that.
In St. Louis and Senegal, the biggest industry there is agriculture. But anybody in agriculture there will tell you that if it's not a dying industry, it's definitely not a lucrative one. So imagine taking a place that once was the capital of French West Africa, and now has kind of fallen from grace in a way, and creating a school for girls there that is a STEAM school that you can kind of teach them all this new age technology and science and math and art, which is just an amazing part of that city. But then also there's this agriculture history within the space itself. And what could those girls do with the dying agriculture there and the land there that is so fruitful?
That's Sophie Sek. Modou Dieng, I saw you sort of nodding as she was describing the situation there.
She's absolutely right. And, it's a great city. It's a beautiful city, but also it's a very poor city. And anything anyone can do to help that city is welcome.
She talked about sort of this city of having this big cultural relevance,
Yes.
hundreds of years ago. And in some ways, St. Louis kind of had that same thing where this city was the gateway to the West. And now it feels like there's other places that have more cultural prominence. Do you see those parallels in the work that you're exhibiting here?
What I see is artists loving their culture and loving their community and loving their craft and putting it together to tell a story that is very compelling and that is beautiful.
There's also an underlying theme of social justice in this exhibit. How do you see the movement that followed the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson as relating to people in Senegal?
Yes, well, we are brothers and sisters all over the world, not just, in terms of race, but also just being part of the humankind, and art making is also a healing process. We are all coming from different stories and different struggle, and sharing those stories and struggle and healing together and sort of celebrating our culture, what we have together and what we can do together is, a way of starting a greater conversation to solving those political problems. And today we're talking about migration as a problem, but let's not forget that if the world is how it is today, it's because of migration.
Migration has brought you here, for example.
Yes, absolutely.
I understand this is the first show in the new Barrett Barrera Projects space in the Central West End. That gallery is really on the move and expanding there. What's that like, trying to mount a show in a space for the first time? Are there a lot of logistical difficulties?
It's crazy.
Is it? Let's hope they're not listening.
It's crazy, but it in a beautiful way, because you have all of this synergy, all of this energy coming together and working together and to make it a success, to make it a place where we can all celebrate and talk and make it happen for the city and for its community, you know. So I'm excited to see, you know, like we've been hanging work and we're still doing it. And
will you
I'm
be ready to go for tomorrow's opening?
We will be ready. We will be ready. It's almost done.
And you've heard that here. He's saying it's going to be ready. So Modou Dieng, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks to you. Thank you.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.